Okay, for the second podcast, we are going to talk about kinds of meter. So previously I was teaching you how to, you know, notice when the accent is on the first or the second syllable, where the stress is. Now we want to look at patterns and what we call them. So again, anytime you're trying to figure out a poem's meter, the first thing you have to do is look for the rhythmic pattern between the accented syllables and the unaccented syllables. So check to see, does the line of the poem begin with an unaccented syllable or an accented syllable? And then look and see what the next one does and the next one does, and do you start to see a pattern created? Or is there a pattern created? Let's look at an example of the daffodils. And I think you read this freshman year. It's by William Wordsworth. I'm giving you the first stanza, or part of the first stanza. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees. And then I cut it off right there. Okay? So you read that to yourself and try to figure out which syllables, especially in the first line, are accented. All right? Um, to figure this out and to mark it up, we use something called scansion. And scansion is the use of visual symbols to mark the meter. And the scansion of a line includes um, the, the symbols that you use to designate the basic units of the syllables, which we call the feet, and then the marks that we use for the accented and the unaccented syllables. And this will make more sense when you see it. These are the symbols that we use. So we use this little U-shaped symbol for an unaccented syllable or unstressed. And then we use this little forward slash for an accented syllable. The break between poetic feet, they want you to use a slight slash mark, although I find it hard to get in between the words or the syllables with it going at an angle, so I usually do it up and down. And then a caesura, which is also one of your lit terms, number 123, that is a pause in the middle of a line. It's usually created with punctuation, and we're going to see an example of that in the third podcast. But these are the accent marks that we used, these are the marks that we use for scansion. So now let's go back to look at our excerpt from the daffodils. And let's take a look at that first line. I've done the scansion of just that first line. In pink here, I noted, well, let's actually just look at the stress first. So I wandered lonely as a cloud. And you can hear it if you say it again and again. I wandered lonely as a cloud. Now, if you can't figure that out, try it both ways. Can you force this line to be stressed, unstressed? I wandered lonely as a cloud. That doesn't even sound right. It doesn't sound natural. It sounds kind of robotic. So when you try it the other way, I wandered lonely as a cloud. Now it feels more natural. So I noticed that we have unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed. So the unit that we have is a pair of syllables in an unstressed, stressed pattern. So I put in these lines to indicate where those units are. We call these individual units feet. Okay? And we could keep going. That floats on high or vales and hills. You see the word or? That happened because poets needed to make this a monosyllabic word, a one-syllable word instead of two. If it's over, it's going to mess up the meter in the line. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees. All right. And then it gets kind of messy down here. We're going to ignore that for a second. Okay, let's take a look at this just as this one line. So you'll notice this line of verse begins with an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. The pattern repeats consistently, so we can say the pattern is 2 syllables long and it's an unstressed, stressed pattern. The pattern repeats 4 times, So we say that there are 4 feet in the line. Okay? So how do we name these? Well, there are 4 basic types of feet, and we determine that by the number of syllables in the foot and the arrangement of the accented and unaccented syllables in that foot. So we've got 2 basic types for feet where there are 2 syllables, and 2 basic types for feet where there are 3 syllables. Now there are other types of feet, but these are the most common. So you probably have heard of iambic, and that is a foot of 2 syllables and an unstressed stress pattern. Okay? The opposite of that is trochee or trochaic, and that occurs when you also have 2 syllables in the foot, but now you have them in a stressed, unstressed pattern. Then the 2 basic types when you have 3 syllables per foot are the anapest and the dactyl. So the anapest has 2 unstressed syllable followed by 1 stressed syllable. So you have dun dun da dun dun da dun dun da dun dun da. Oh, I just saw a typo. Ugh. No, I'm not going to start over. I'm just going to work through that. Forgive me. All right. The dactyl also has 3 syllables, but now the pattern is stressed followed by 2 unstressed. So bum, 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 bum. Okay? You don't see a lot of anapestic or dactylic verse because it gets very sing-songy. Okay? It's pretty unusual to have a poem completely in one of these 2. I mean, they're out there, but they're not as common. Okay? Let's look at an example. Go back to our example we had. So we said that we had 4 feet and that each foot contained an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So that makes each foot what we call an iamb, or we say that it's iambic. Then to figure out what comes after that, we attach this little root word to the word meter to indicate how many feet there are per line. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we call that tetrameter. Okay? So there are 4 feet per line. So this poem is written in iambic tetrameter. And that's probably one of the most common meters that you'll see in poetry. Much more common even than iambic pentameter. All right? Here is something that you will need to know. In case on the quiz I will be giving you a couple excerpts and you'll have to identify the meter. So you'll need to know that dimeter contains 2 feet per line, trimeter contains 3, tetrameter is 4, pentameter is 5, hexameter is 6, heptameter is 7, and octameter is 8. Rarely are there more than 8 feet per line. It just doesn't very happen. So you're not gonna have to know any more than that. Okay. Let's look at another example. This is from Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, The Raven. So let's listen to The Raven and see if you can figure out the meter. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. Hear it again. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. So you can hear the rhythm. Let's see if we can mark up the scansion and figure out the meter. So first what I did is I looked at the stress and I figured out that the first syllable is stressed. Once upon. Now the word upon is a good clue. Like maybe I saw the word once and I couldn't quite figure out if that was stressed or unstressed. I go to the next word. I can't say up'n. I said it's upon. So this has to be unstressed, stressed. That helped me out. So then I kept going. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. So here you have a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed. So the pattern is 2 syllables. So we have a foot of 2 syllables, which means we're either going to have trochaic or iambic. And since we begin with a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable, we have trochaic. Okay? So now we know what kind of foot we have in this line. We need to count the feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 feet, which means that this line is written in trochaic octameter. Okay, pretty cool. All right, we're going to stop there. In the next podcast, we're going to talk about the exceptions to the rules because not all poems have a consistent meter, even throughout the line or from one line to the next line. So I'm going to escape and